You think she left because you weren't enough, but the truth is, she left because you were too much of what she didn't know how to value yet. Let that land for a second, because everything you've been told about why she moved on, why she pulled back, why she suddenly stopped seeing what was right in front of her, most of it is wrong. And that wrongness is costing you. It's costing you your confidence, your clarity, and in some cases, your identity. So today we're going to fix that. We're going to pull back the curtain on something that doesn't get talked about honestly enough. The psychology behind why women realize the value of a man only after he's gone. Not to make you bitter, not to make you manipulative, but to wake you up to who you actually are and what you've been carelessly giving away. If this is the kind of truth you need to hear on a regular basis, the kind that actually makes you think, recalibrate, and reclaim yourself, then hit subscribe right now. Not for me, for you. Because you need a place where someone tells you what's real, not what's comfortable, and you need to come back to that place often. Now, here's the thesis. Here's what it really means when a woman suddenly misses a man she took for granted. It doesn't mean she made a mistake and now regrets a decent guy. It means she finally encountered reality. She collided with the difference between what she thought she wanted and what she actually needed. And that collision, that awakening, only happened because you stopped being available, because you stopped performing, because you finally became more committed to your own life than to her approval of it. That's the whole thing. That's the entire psychology in 2 sentences. But we need to go deeper because understanding the surface doesn't change behavior. Understanding the root does. So let's start with the misconception. The misconception is that she took you for granted because you weren't exciting enough, weren't attractive enough, weren't successful enough, weren't dominant enough. That's what your ego whispers to you at 2 a.m. That's the story most men tell themselves because it gives them something to fix. If she left because you weren't enough, then you just need to become more, and then everything will make sense. But here's the hard truth. She didn't take you for granted because of your deficiencies. She took you for granted because of your consistency, your reliability, your presence, your unconditional emotional investment. You were always there, always available, always ready to reroute your plans, your energy, your attention back to her. And somewhere along the line, you taught her that you would always be there regardless of how she treated you. That's not a flaw in your character. That's a miscalibration in your behavior. There's a difference, but the consequence is the same. Here's why it happens, and this is the part most people skip, because it requires a level of psychological honesty that's uncomfortable. Human beings, all human beings, are wired to devalue what comes without effort. It's not a female thing. It's a human thing. We are dopamine-driven creatures. We assign value to things based on difficulty of acquisition, not intrinsic quality. A diamond is valuable partly because it's rare and hard to obtain. The same diamond sitting in unlimited abundance on the sidewalk becomes a pebble you kick out of the way without thinking. You became the diamond on the sidewalk, not because you lacked value, but because you offered yourself in unlimited abundance with zero scarcity, zero mystery, zero friction. You were emotionally, physically, and energetically available at all times, on demand, without condition. And the brain, her brain, any brain, is neurologically incapable of treating unlimited availability as precious. It simply doesn't work that way. What is everywhere is overlooked. What is rare is treasured. And here's what that cost you. Not just the relationship. It cost you something more important than the relationship. It cost you your sense of self. Because when you orient your entire emotional reality around another person's perception of you, you stop existing as a full, independent, self-directed human being. You start existing as a reflection, a mirror, a support system that requires nothing and tolerates everything. And at some subconscious level, even the person you're trying to keep close begins to lose respect for you, not out of cruelty, out of psychology. Because respect is not given to mirrors. Respect is given to people who have their own face, their own direction, their own gravity. When you dissolve yourself into someone else's world, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible. That's called self-abandonment disguised as devotion, and it is one of the most common, most painful, and most unaddressed traps that emotionally mature men fall into. Not weak men, not broken men, emotionally capable, caring, devoted men who were taught that love means giving everything, erasing your needs, and staying patient no matter what. Men who were raised to believe that if you just love someone hard enough, consistently enough, selflessly enough, they'll eventually see it. They'll eventually choose it. they'll eventually choose you. But love doesn't operate on a delayed recognition system. People don't suddenly appreciate what they've been treating as background noise just because you turned up the volume. They appreciate it when you take the speaker away. Let me describe something to you. Let me describe the kind of man who, when he leaves or pulls back or simply redirects himself, suddenly becomes the most vivid memory in her mind. He's not the loudest man in the room. He doesn't perform for attention. He doesn't monitor her facial expressions to gauge whether he's being accepted or rejected in real time. He walks in grounded. He has a direction. You can feel that he has somewhere to be, something to build, something he's committed to that has nothing to do with her approval. When he's present, he's genuinely fully present. His attention is a gift, not a default. He listens not because he's desperate to be liked, but because he's actually curious about people. He's warm but not needy. He's consistent but not predictable. He has standards, quiet ones, not performed ones. And those standards apply to how he spends his time, who he gives his energy to, and what he tolerates in his space. He doesn't make ultimatums. He doesn't send passive-aggressive signals. He simply has a line, and when that line is crossed, he adjusts, calmly, without drama, without begging. He recalibrates and he moves. He doesn't wait around hoping someone will recognize what they're losing. He already knows his value because he built it. He lives it. It's not something he has to convince you of. It radiates. That's the man she thinks about at 2 a.m, 6 months later. Not the man who texted first every day. Not the man who canceled his plans every time she called. Not the man who swallowed his discomfort to keep the peace. The man who knew what he was worth and lived accordingly. The man who was genuinely difficult to replace, not because he was cruel, but because he was complete. Now let's talk about what actually happens inside her psychology when a man like that withdraws. This is important. This is the mechanism. When you are consistently present and consistently giving and consistently available, you become part of her baseline, part of the emotional furniture. Her nervous system stops registering you as a variable and starts registering you as a constant. Constants are not exciting. Constants are not missed. They are expected. They are consumed without gratitude, the way you consume air, invisibly, automatically, without awareness. But when you remove yourself, when you stop texting first, stop initiating, stop rearranging your life around her schedule, stop performing emotional labor that was never requested or reciprocated, her nervous system suddenly registers the absence. And in that absence, something shifts. The contrast becomes visible. She starts comparing her current reality to the memory of your presence. And memory, without the friction of daily availability, becomes idealized. She starts remembering the good without the mundane. She starts feeling the gap where you used to be. She starts asking questions she never asked when you were there. Questions like, why did he stop? What changed? Did I do something? Was he really as good as I'm remembering? Is what I have now actually better? Or did I just think I wanted something different? That mental process, that recalibration, that's not manipulation. That's not a game. That's reality doing the work you could never do for yourself by staying and convincing and over-explaining. Silence and absence and a redirected life tell a story that 10,000 words never could. And the story they tell is simple. He knows his worth. He's fine. He moved on. He's building something. He was real. And I treated him like he was replaceable. And I was wrong. You cannot create that realization by being more available. You cannot argue someone into appreciating you. You cannot love someone into valuing you. Value is assigned, not declared. And the only thing that creates it is demonstrated, lived, embodied self-respect. So what do you actually do with all of this? Here is where it gets practical. Here is the sequence. Stop engineering her realization. Stop posting things online to trigger nostalgia. Stop sending the casual check-in text that isn't actually casual. Stop positioning yourself in her peripheral vision, hoping she'll notice. All of that is just sophisticated begging. It inverts your power. It tells her nervous system that you're still orbiting her, that she's still the center of your gravity. Redirect that energy immediately. Start building something that has nothing to do with her, not to impress her, not to become the man she'll regret losing. That framing keeps her at the center of your motivation, which is the exact pattern you need to break. Build, because building is who you are. Build because you have a vision for your life that predates her and will outlast her departure. Build because the most attractive version of you is not the version trying to get her back. It's the version that genuinely, completely, irreversibly moved forward. Stop telling the story where you're the victim of her poor judgment. Yes, she didn't see your value clearly. Yes, that caused you pain. But the moment you reframe that story as evidence of your inadequacy, you hand her a power she was never supposed to have. The truth is, her inability to see your value is a statement about her vision, not your worth. A painting doesn't become worthless because someone walks past it without stopping. The painting remains exactly what it is. Reconstruct your standards. You taught her how to treat you by accepting what you accepted. That's not self-blame, that's accountability, which is a completely different thing. Accountability says, I can see clearly what I allowed, and I can make different choices now. Starting today. Starting with every conversation, every relationship, every situation where you notice yourself shrinking, over-explaining, or tolerating treatment that contradicts your value. Reclaim your presence, not for her, for you. Start showing up in your own life with the same level of energy, attention, and commitment you were pouring into someone who wasn't reciprocating. Redirect that devotion inward, into your health, into your craft, into your relationships with people who already see you clearly and choose you consistently. That is where your energy belongs. You are not a consolation prize someone discovers after their experiments fail. You are not the safe option someone returns to when the exciting options run dry. You are not a lesson someone learns on their way to someone else. Unless you accept that role. Unless you make yourself available for it. Unless you wait around long enough and quiet enough for that to become your story, you get to choose your story. And here's what I want you to understand before we close. The fact that she didn't see your value when you were right in front of her is not a wound you carry forever. It is information. It is feedback about the dynamic you participated in, the energy you projected, the version of yourself you were presenting. And information can be used. Information can be metabolized into clarity, into recalibration, into the kind of man who doesn't need anyone to realize his worth retroactively, because he was never in the business of waiting for external validation to tell him who he was. You are the answer, not to her question, to your own. The question you've been quietly asking since this whole thing started, the question underneath the pain. That question isn't really about her. It's about you. It's about who you are when no one is choosing you. It's about what you're made of when the approval disappears. It's about whether you have the internal architecture to stand in your own value without requiring anyone to confirm it. And you do. You already do. That's what today is for. This is not a session about her psychology. This is a session about yours, about waking up to the cost of self-abandonment, about recognizing the patterns, about choosing right now, today, in this moment, to be someone who cannot be taken for granted because he is too busy building a life that commands presence, commands energy, and commands respect from the only person whose judgment ultimately matters, himself. If this cut through something for you, if something in here woke up a part of you that needed waking, subscribe. Because this is what we do here. We deal in clarity, we deal in honesty, we deal in the kind of straight talk that actually moves men forward instead of keeping them soft and comfortable and stuck. There is a whole community of men here who are choosing differently, who are building, who are recalibrating, who are refusing to shrink. Come back often. The truth lives here, and so do you.